Hello. In this video, we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. Just as a reminder, like means the same or common. So it means those numbers are the same. As a fraction rule, you cannot add or subtract fractions unless your denominators are the same. So if your denominators are not the same, you have to use your LCM to find like denominators. However, these examples already have like denominators. So let's look at problem 1. So I have 5/12 plus 3/12. So the first thing I need to check is my denominators. Remember, the denominator is the number on the bottom. So I have 5/12, 3/12. So since my denominator is the same for both of these fractions, I can just carry my denominator over. I don't have to change it. It's already the same. You do not ever add your denominator together when you're adding and subtracting fractions because your amount of pieces in the whole has not changed. Your size of the whole is broken into 12 pieces, so you just carry your 12 over to your answer. Now, since my denominator is the same, all I have to do is check my sign. I know I'm adding, and I just add my numerators together. So 5 plus 3 equals 8. So 5/12 plus 3/12 equals 8/12. However, before you make that your answer, you have to remember you always have to simplify your answer. So always write your answer in simplest form. If you need help with that, there is a video that will help you write fractions in simplest form. But to write your answer in simplest form, you take your numerator, which is 8, and your denominator, which is 12, and you find the greatest common factor, and then divide by your greatest common factor. So for this, you find the GCF, then divide, numerator and denominator by the GCF. All right, so I'm going to pull out my 8 and set up my tree. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my 12. So for my factor tree for 8, I can do 4 times 2. 2 I'm going to circle since I can't break down 2 anymore. Its only factors are 1 and 2. And then I can break down 4 one more time. 2 times 2. Then I can circle those 2's because I can't break them down anymore. So 8 equals 1 because 1 is a factor of every number times 2 times 2 times 2. Now my tree for 12, I can do 3 times 4. I'm going to circle 3 because I can't break 3 down anymore. Its only factors are 1 times 3. Then I can split up my 4. I can do 2 times 2. And again, I circle those 2's because I can't break them down anymore. So 12 equals 1 times 2 times 2 times 3. And then you circle all the pairs in common. So whatever number you have the same in both lists, you circle those pairs. If you need help with this step, check out the greatest common factor videos that are also posted. So there's a pair of 1's, a pair of 2's, and another pair of 2's. Now I don't have another 2 in the opposite list or a 3 in the other list, so I can just cross those off. They don't have a pair. Now remember, for this part, you pull out 1 from each pair. So GCF equals, I pull out 1 of the 1's, I pull out 1, 2 from right here, and then I pull out another 2. And then you multiply to find your GCF. So just go from left to right. So 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So my GCF equals 4. Now I take that 4 back to my answer, and I divide my numerator and my denominator by 4. So 8 divided by 4, 12 divided by 4. Remember the fraction rule, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So 8 divided by 4 equals 2. And 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So 2/3 is your final answer. Your answer must be in simplest form. So 5/12 plus 3/12 equals 2/3. All right, let's look at another one. 8/9 minus 2/9 equals, so remember the first thing I do when I'm adding or subtracting fractions, I check my denominators and I see if they're the same. So my denominator in this first fraction is 9. My denominator in the second fraction is also 9. So I don't have to change anything. Since the denominators are the same, I carry my denominator right over to my answer. So I know my denominator will be 9. And then I just subtract the numerators. So 8 minus 2 equals 6. So 8/9 minus 2/9 equals 6/9. But remember, you always have to simplify. Your answer has to be in simplest form every time. So again, for simplest form, I find the GCF of my answer. So I find the GCF of my numerator and my denominator, so 6 and 9. So for 6, I can do 2 times 3. And I can circle both of those because their only factors are 1 and each one in themselves. So 1 times 2 or 1 times 3. So my list for 6 equals 1 times 2 times 3. And then for 9, I can break that down by 3 times 3. And again, I circle those 3's because the only factor of 3 is 1 and 3. So 9 equals 1 times 3 times 3. And then I look for pairs. What do both of these lists have in common? Well, I have a pair of 1's and I have a pair of 3's. I don't have a 2 in both lists, so I can cross that off. And I don't have a second 3 in my top list, so I can cross that off. So remember, to find GCF, you pull out one number from each pair. So I pull out 1, 1, and you're always multiplying because they're factors. And then I pull out 1, 3 from here. So my GCF equals 1 times 3, which equals 3. And then I need to go back and divide my numerator and my denominator by my GCF so that I can simplify. So I divide 6 by 3 and 9 divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So my final answer is 2/3. 8/9 minus 2/9 equals 2/3. Right. Now we can do one more. Right. 5/10 plus 2/10 equals. So the first thing you do is check to see if your denominators are the same. They are both 10. So I can just carry my 10 over. I know my denominator will be 10. And then I just add my numerators. 5 plus 2 is 7. And now I need to make sure I write it in simplest form. So don't forget to simplify. And you simplify by finding your GCF of your numerator, which is 7, and your denominator, which is 10. So for 7, my only factors of 7 are 1 times 7. So my list for 7 is just 1 times 7. There's no other way for me to break that down. My list for 10, my factors for 10 are 2 times 5. And then 2, the only factors are 1 and 2, so I can circle it. Same with 5, its only factors are 1 and 5, so I circle that. So my list for 10, I have 10 equals 1 times 2 times 5. Now I circle what I have in common. And the only thing that's the same in both lists is 1. So you pull out 1, 1. So my GCF equals 1. And then if your GCF equals 1, that means your fraction is already in simplest form. Because if you divide by 1, 7 divided by 1, and 10 divided by 1, this isn't going to change. 7 divided by 1 is 7. 10 divided by 1 is 10. So 7/10 is your final answer. So if your GCF is 1, then your answer is already in simplest form.